This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team. The final score, AFC Fylde 2, Wrexham 0, and a scoreline which frankly flattered Wrexham. They just didn't turn up on the day. A hugely frustrating performance. And, well, the long unbeaten run is over. The attempt to set an outright record for the most away league games in which you've kept consecutive clean sheets is gone, and you couldn't argue about it because 2-0 quite frankly flattered Wrexham. They made a couple of changes, one enforced, Ollie Marks coming in for Sean Pearson at the back, and Sam Wedgbury coming back from illness to replace Mark Carrington in the middle of the pitch, and started fairly brightly. Good piece of hold-up play by Reid allowed Holroyd to pick it up, work it down the right-hand side. Kelly accelerating onto it, got behind the defence and swung an inviting cross in. Rutherford at the far post, stretching with his right foot. Just couldn't get any contact. But with an 8th minute, Wrexham were behind. A free kick conceded rather unnecessarily by Wedgbury, and while Danny Rowe has got a terrific shot on him from free kicks, he stepped up and he struck it beautifully. Dunn blocked it but pushed it straight back into the goal mouth. Will probably look back and feel he should have done it better than that, and the ball fell to ex-Wrexham player Johnny Smith, who couldn't miss from close range. And after that, Wrexham really were on the back foot. Fylde exposing them, attacking dangerously, and it was starting to look rather worrying. Rowe with a nice flick on, Muldoon missing Marks off the ball and teeing up Smith, who shot from close range after a good diagonal run left to right into the box was well blocked 6 yards out. Then just after the half-hour mark, another free kick from Rowe, a vicious strike which took a deflection from the wall, skidded into the goal mouth, heading for the bottom left corner. Dunn with a terrific parry. The ball dropped to Smith, who looked like he had another tap in. Dunn did brilliantly to get up, recover and make another block, and the ball ricocheted behind for the corner. Within a minute, more trouble. The corner, Wrexham couldn't clear it. Manny Smith making a smashing block from a Rowe shot. The ball dropping loose, Jennings lunging in the box, Fylde shouting for a penalty. While they did that, the ball dropped to Bond, who lashed the ball over from the edge of the area. Wrexham came completely penned in. The midfield just unable to get a foothold on the ball. Wrexham's only hope was to try and knock balls over the top for the strikers to run onto, and it wasn't working. They weren't getting those passes right, and at the back, many mistakes being made. Carrington had to come on to replace the injured Kevin Roberts, but it really was messy at the back, and Wrexham clinging on desperately. They did have one meaningful effort in the half. That came 2 minutes before the break. Good scrapping by Alex Reid, who battled away with his man, won it from Taylor, and then as the ball dropped loose, slashed in a strike from 25 yards, which Lynch had to save low down, parrying to his right. The second half, the same team came out, and Wrexham, well, showed a bit of energy, a bit more snappiness in the first 5 minutes of the half, but they weren't able to create anything from it, and soon we were back into the pattern of Fylde on top and Fylde making the chances. Bond hitting a terrific 25-yarder which took a nasty deflection and went spearing towards the bottom right corner. Dunn did brilliantly to adjust his footing and push it away. And then with about 20 minutes left, well, the heavens really started to open on Wrexham, and Fylde began to take control. Rowe cutting in onto his left foot and driving a good shot. Another good parry from Dunn. And then moments later, as Fylde retrieved a second ball and worked it back in, Finlay with a strike, again heading for the bottom left corner. Again, Dunn parrying. Quarter of an hour left. Wedgbury launching a free kick from midfield into the box. Lots of players attacked it. Nobody could get a touch. Manny Smith turning with his head in his hands. Couldn't believe nobody could convert it. But it would have been a bit of a travesty if Wrexham had got an equaliser at that point. And soon afterwards, they were 2 down. For a passage of play in which Muldoon, a lively striker for Fylde, had 3 chances in the space of just over a minute, which not only illustrates his persistence but also Wrexham's vulnerability. Muldoon with a tremendous run going through the middle, beating 3 men and driving in a shot. Dunn doing well once more to parry. The ball stayed live, was recirculated to the right flank. Burke ripped in a nasty cross after getting around the back of the defence, and unmarked, Muldoon 6 yards out attacked it, but it just came too high for him to control properly, and he put the header well over the bar. But not to be frustrated, because from the goal kick, Muldoon won it back, ran down the right channel, beat Marks and drove the ball into the bottom right corner. Dunn beaten, and Muldoon had his goal 2-0, and surely it was game over. Wrexham had tried to convert to a diamond to try and breathe some life into their efforts and put Masanka up front to replace Alex Reid. Now Dean Keats played his final card, throwing Jack McCrath up front, and Wrexham pretty much were throwing the kitchen sink, really, at Fylde, in all honesty. And because of that approach, they carved out some little scrambly moments in the penalty area. An excellent early ball by Carrington into the box. Masanka lunged in to try and win it. Lynch went bravely down at his feet, saved, and the referee gave a foul for Masanka's challenge. And then Rutherford ripping in another good cross from the right-hand side. Masanka and McCrath attacked it. One of them, I think Masanka got it into the net, but the linesman's flag was up for offside. In the last minute, pardon me, Wrexham could have gone 3 down. A long time since we let 3 goals in a game, certainly not this season. A mistake by Jennings at left back allowed Henry Jones in. He laid the ball off, and substitute Serhat Tazdemi. It was one-on-one with Dunn down the left channel. Tried to feed it across Dunn into the bottom right corner and put it wide. A real let-off for Wrexham. And then one final added time chance. Again, a Wedgbury launch into the box from a midfield free kick. It dropped into the penalty area. Holroyd picked it up after the scramble, 6 yards out, but could only poke it straight at Lynch. And that tame finish really, I think, pretty much summed up Wrexham's day. A grim day at the office, in all honesty, and Wrexham absolutely deserving of the 2-0 defeat. Maybe what summed it up best was when, at the end of the game, the Fylde announcer thanked the volunteers for getting the pitch playable, and the Wrexham fans booed him because they were regretting having made the trip up to Lancashire. It was a horrible, horrible day out for Wrexham, a real complete power failure. And back to the drawing board for next Saturday for a bit more detail. And I'll pass you over to myself doing the Calon FM summary at the end of the commentary. Well, that was pretty horrible, in all honesty. The final score, AFC Fylde 2, Wrexham 0, and Wrexham's worst performance of the season by some distance. I know we struggled to create at Dover, but Dover presented a very specific man-to-man marking challenge. That was just very, very poor. Wrexham didn't turn up from the outset. A goal down after 8 minutes, and there was, some consternation about losing Sean Pearson, the skipper, and replacing him with Ollie Marks. Well, you can't point the finger at Ollie Marks for that. It was a complete across the team power failure. Maybe Pearson's personality and drive was lacking from the team. You certainly couldn't claim that Marks was at fault for either of the goals, and didn't have a bad match, Marks, to be fair. Well, he did make some errors, but then who didn't? Wrexham really from the outset were off the pace. That early goal was a real blow to them. Dunn, I think, should have done better with the free kick, parrying it out for Johnny Smith to score. But after that, to be fair, Dunn made a series of good saves as Wrexham's defence was uncharacteristically porous. Really strange to see Wrexham surrendering so many opportunities in a match. And there were so many individual errors, so many mistakes that were absolutely avoidable. It was fairly hard to fathom, in all honesty. Players who've been reliable and have consistently been reliable all season, and sometimes earlier than that, making just the most basic of errors. Jennings was particularly error-strewn as well. Marks made the odd mistake, and in midfield, Wedgbury, whether he wasn't totally well, he was ill last Saturday, but he was certainly a shadow of his normal combative sense and had very little influence on the game. I'm just thinking about picking a man of the match. And there were so few contenders. Akil Wright in midfield worked terrifically hard. He faded his influence in the second half, in all honesty. In the first half, he made a number of good tackles, but Wrexham struggled to create in the middle of the pitch. And frankly, the only other players who came anywhere near really playing according to their reputation was Ollie Marks. It was Mark Carrington, who came on at half-time and did a decent job at right back and really tried to drive things forwards, got forwards more than Kevin Roberts was able to, ripped a few dangerous balls, and one of which Wrexham got into the net, but the flag gone up for offside. And Manny Smith, and although it's something of a cliche, Manny Smith really was the only player that you could possibly say did himself justice, and therefore is a pretty uncontested choice as man of the match. He showed good spirit, good physicality, and good leadership in the middle of a rudderless performance. Wrexham just struggled to deal with the physicality of Rowe and Muldoon, and Muldoon's movement up front. Finlay, the ex-Wrexham midfielder, was terrific in his energy and his creativity, ripping in set pieces and balls from wide positions. Johnny Smith, the other ex-Wrexham player, his pace caused problems. But Wrexham also were outdone physically. Taylor, who looked cumbersome in the FA Cup tie here against Wrexham 10 days ago, this time was a very effective presence. Wrexham trying to knock long balls. They were just coming straight back at Wrexham. Taylor was winning everything in the air, protecting his centre-backs, who, when they were tested, also won it in the air. On the flanks, well, Zane Francis Angle on the left and Luke Burke on the right, the full-backs spent a lot more time driving forwards and taking the game to Wrexham than they did defending. That's an absolute fact. And that tells you all you need to know about the balance of this game, where the two Fylde full-backs were such effective attacking figures. And then the other comparison to make was between the two goalkeepers, because Lynch on the one end was pretty much unemployed. He made a good save low to his right from an Alex Reid strike at the end of the first half, and that was pretty much all he had to do to extend him. Whereas Chris Dunn, notwithstanding the fact that he probably should have done better with the initial goal, made a string of very good acrobatic parries. It really was great work by Dunn. So huge disappointment by Wrexham. It's no news to hear that Wrexham are maybe lacking a bit creatively, that we've been aware of all season. But we have not been used to seeing this Wrexham side show a lack of defensive gumption, whether Pearson is absent or not. We've not used to seeing Wrexham really struggle with to bounce back with character, which they did show heart in the second half, trying to hurl things at Fylde, I suppose. And even when they went 2-0 down, they seemed to be lost deep in added time. They were still showing energy, I guess, if nothing else, and lots of bodies in the box and trying to throw things into the mixer. And it's unusual to see a Wrexham side this season which just lacks ability to get any sort of grip on the ball, any sort of grip and influence on the game. So a massive, massive disappointment. By some distance, as far as I'm concerned, Wrexham's worst performance of the season, and they now must show character to bounce back and improve massively on Saturday. A big game at home to Leyton Orient, another side that will have promotion aspirations. Wrexham need to pick it up for that game. It'll be live on Calon FM, so listen in and let's hope Wrexham can improve. And with the final score of AFC Fylde 2, Wrexham 0, I'll hand you back to the studio. This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.